Next, our speaker will be Captain Seth Brown, stationed in Fort Bragg, one of your runners today.
Afternoon, everybody. Mayor Bell, Mr. Baber, friends and family, it is my distinct honor on behalf of the Freedom 500 to welcome you to our event and to thank you for starting our 500-mile journey off right. This has been planned over the last 4 months from the Afghan hills to the mountains of Colorado. And when you start planning an event like this, there was this inherent fear that no one would be able to show up, and I'd be addressing a crowd of 6 people. And so none of this would have been possible without Kathy Anna, Surf Pro, Adam Dickinson from 501 Realty, and Crossroads Band. So thank you all very much for coming out and supporting us. By now you know who we are and what we're doing. We're 7 Army officers running from North Carolina to New York City. And every time I tell people that, they ask me how. How are you going to run that far? How are you guys doing it? And how is it possible for you guys to finish in 6 days? As all veterans of intense military training or situations know, that at 3 a.m. on the 70th mile, the how no longer matters. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, once said, "He who has a why can withstand any how." And I have 3 whys for you. And it has to do with our loyalty instilled in us at Duke, the responsibility instilled in us through the Army, and the sense of purpose installed in us through the mission continues. When my uncle commissioned me about a half mile from here in the Duke Gardens in 2009, he read me my oath of office, and he whispered in my ear, and he said, "Welcome to the family." And I knew he meant, at least I hope I knew what he meant, meaning welcome to the Army family. But I didn't fully understand what that meant until about recently. So I was an engineer, which was kind of a smaller subset of Duke University. I was in a fraternity, which was a smaller subset of Duke University. I was even in the band, which also had strong bonds and being in a smaller subset of Duke. But when I got an email from 4 months ago from Phil, after one of his soldiers sustained injury in Afghanistan, and he said, "I have an idea for a physical endurance event to raise money for veterans. Who's in?" Within minutes, and I mean minutes, we had 6 100% yeses without an idea of what we were doing, when it was going to happen, what it consisted of, but we had a why, and the how didn't matter. And 8 years ago, when I was a cadet, right before I contracted, then Lieutenant Colonel Hodges, a professor of military science, had me on the EPIS White Lecture Hall, and he stood all the cadets up who were about to contract. And he said, "There's a 95% chance that you're going to go to war, and more than likely, most of you are going to go more than once. You still want a contract." And I knew what he meant. I knew we were going to go to war, but knowing and understanding, once again, are different things. And we graduated here in 2009. This morning, when Matt landed here, it's the first time that all 7 of us have been in the same state, let alone the United States, since I think we left Duke. So it's a pretty meaningful thing for us. But Duke is where we started. Durham is our second home, so thank you all for coming out. Durham means so much to us. And the leadership that was instilled in us at Duke University, I think, set us up for success as platoon leaders. And that's the second thing you have to understand, is that we are platoon leaders. And when I say we are platoon leaders, even though the majority of us have moved on in our career and we're no longer in charge of our platoon, as platoon leaders, we're responsible for the health and welfare of our soldiers. And it's collectively, we've led hundreds of soldiers across countless states in multiple countries, in and out of combat zones. But that creed and promise of looking out for their health and welfare extends well beyond the time of when you're in charge of that platoon. And while the average enlistment of a soldier is only a few years, we personally have helped escort our soldiers make the transition from soldier to civilian. So I guess you could say by doing this run, we're taking care of our own. We're taking care of our soldiers, we're taking care of soldiers that could have been our soldiers, and we're taking care of the people who get out, our soldiers when they get out in the future. And lastly, we're doing this for the mission continues. And I firmly believe that the mission continues treats the problem that veterans have and not the symptom. So regardless of your opportunities when you come into the Army, whether you're enlisted, whether you're an officer, whether you have a GED or a Duke education, whether the world is your oyster or you do not have many opportunities, the Army is going to ask of you the most important thing that anyone has ever asked of you in your entire life. And when you get out, whether it's tomorrow or 4 years from now or 40 years from now, you're going to be faced with the eternal question of, can I benefit my community, my nation, and my fellow man with the same impact I had while in uniform? And I think the Mission Continues answers that question. The Mission Continues is a nonprofit organization that awards community service fellowships to post-9/11 veterans, empowering them to transform their own lives by reminding them to become leaders in their community, reminding them that service does not end when they get out of the military, but service is a lifelong thing, and the values instilled in them through military, so the discipline and being goal-focused, mission-oriented men and women, will allow them to become leaders throughout their entire lives in civilian and military. I have found that the reason that Duke officers have such a close-knit community is due to the fact that so few students from universities of Duke caliber end up choosing a life of military service. While less than 1% of our nation serves, the number drops precipitously as you enter the circles that Duke draws from. That said, one of the best things about this run is that it has shown us that the brotherhood we few Duke officers share extends well beyond the reach of all small Army ROTC program. This issue is bigger than us. It's not about the 7 runners. It's not about what we're doing. So donate, don't donate, run, don't run, but you're here and you're listening. You've given us our time, and for that we're incredibly grateful. We just thank you for the opportunity and the time, because our ultimate goal is to bring awareness to the mission continues and to veterans as a whole. So thank you for coming, thank you for listening, and welcome to the family.
Great job, Seth.